see how I'm doing on the volume situation here. I muted it so I didn't interrupt.
You want to play the speakers?
I do, yeah, that would be awesome. Did you see me like sitting here like,
Oh, I wish I do it, yeah, it's not very long.
No, it's great. I like it.
And you could never make a video without Gloria in it.
I
She
tried.
wouldn't allow it.
She wouldn't allow it.
I
Which
tried.
one is Gloria?
Oh, she's the one near the end. Without
Oh, okay.
She's knitting, I think, actually. in the picture.
Is she at the hearth, Leslie? Okay.
Does it have a-
It does, yeah. We're okay. I refuse to have any more tech problems.
This is the third computer we've had in here, to try to make this work.
Really, this morning?
Yeah.
Transitions is working to end poverty and homelessness for women and children in Spokane. With 50 years of experience providing housing for women and women with children, we are ready to expand our services. 2 acres of land, underutilized and costly to maintain, will become 24 cottages of permanent housing with on-site support services, giving formerly homeless individuals and families the best opportunity to become stable and grow. Spokane has an 80% gap in need for quality, affordable housing. We are need and mission driven to change this statistic and meet the needs of the more than 1,600 women and children we serve each year. If you believe like we do, that everyone deserves a home, learn more and join us.
Gosh, who knew those awesome plans? Someone really.
And does every architect learn to print just like that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you used to.
Now it's all computers.
Kind of taken over, but yeah, we spend a lot of time on lettering.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm gonna let E and Ryan talk a little bit more specifically about this project, so I'll pass that
I'll
over.
start and then lateral to you. By the way, this video would be available to people, so, right, so if you were going out to talk to someone about a request with one of us, we can take that, and we have bought a Surface to be able to use. Maybe you're going to see all this later, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was stealing your news. This project really, I want to go back a little bit in history. We do a 3-year strategic planning effort, and we're at the end of actually a 3rd year right now. We're looking in November, beginning of the next 3 years. But so the previous strategic plan, so about 5-6 years back, we began to really think about the property at TLC. It's 2 acres. The TLC and Educare are on about a 4-acre plot, but 2 acres is undeveloped. And we began to think about what should really be happening with that property. Some of it emerged out of the expense of maintaining it, quite frankly, and it's very costly. From an ecological perspective, it's not really great to have a lot of grass like that. And it seemed to also from a value perspective that as a steward, a good steward of property and our own facilities, that it didn't quite make sense to have a large chunk of land like that was undeveloped that could be utilized in some other way. So we spent 3 years as part of our strategic planning team to really look at what would be the best use of that land. And we looked at lots of things and considered another social enterprise possibility. So we looked at goats, we looked at orchards, we looked at chickens and all kinds of things.
Vineyard.
Would there be?
Yeah.
What?
Well, orchard and vineyard possibilities.
Yeah.
I really wanted the goats.
Wine making was,
I
yeah.
really wanted to go.
So we spent quite a bit of time looking at zoning issues, and this was actually before Spokane, just in the last couple of years, has made a change and allowed for animals within the urban areas. But this was before that. But we really looked seriously at the possibility of could we create something where women could learn a skill and then find employment from that. So we spent 2 to 3 years looking at that, and then this current strategic plan, we continued that effort, but we also added the effort of, or the goal of, what about permanent supportive housing? We've become more and more clear that what we do is tremendous, but also the move to what's called housing first, and really putting people right into housing is critical, and we'll hear more probably from Cindy about that. But that need of, for transitional housing, we know we really benefit people who are fleeing domestic violence situations, people who are coming out of prisons or mental health facilities. But sometimes people can move into housing straight from the street, and it's pretty successful for them. And the data has sort of shown that. So we began to look at what's the possibility of thinking about permanent supportive housing on this property. And I'll be really honest, I think we avoided that for a long time. It was felt really scary and big, and personally I was in a little bit of denial about it. And finally we started thinking seriously about what could we do. Brought in Helen Martin really quickly, Ryan, quickly to help us look at zoning possibilities, and which is why we really came to cottage housing component, and he can probably explain more than I will about it, but really began to realize that it made sense to use this property in that way. It's in a infill in the city, which is kind of unique. You don't often have 2 acres in the middle of the city like that in a residential area that's underutilized. So we began to look at the possibility, and it makes total sense with what we do. Our mission is to work to end poverty and homelessness. We currently do that through transitional housing, through the drop-in center, through New Leaf. But we also already manage permanent supportive housing units generally off-site. We do have apartments, one at Miriam's and one at TLC, that a full-time resident lives there. But we also have a number of programs that we manage off-site properties, and we have 33 units of those. So we have a Strong Families Grant, which is for families who have been separated through child welfare and are reunifying, and so we work to help keep them reunified in their homes. We have 6 units that are paid for through HUD. They're off-site. We have a case manager who works with them. And then we have another program called the Washington Family Fund that has 6 units off-site. So we have a number of programs already. We do this, but we haven't really owned the property, and so this is our first foray into that. And you heard the stat in here. I'll just share it in a different way. For every 100 families who need affordable housing in this town, there are only 12 units available. And so we know that it's a real challenge for people to be able to find affordable units for themselves. And we feel like that's an important call for us and an extension of our ministries and our mission. So Ryan, I'll get to you.
When we were contacted by Edie, we started off with an analysis of the site and the zoning, what would be allowed there. We started off if you just did standard single-family homes, how many could go on the site, and that's based on the number of lots that were originally platted there, and so we would be limited to, I believe, 12. Would be 12 single-family homes would be possible there if you were just to build a standard home. Then we looked at could we do a large apartment building, really maximize the number of people you could serve on the site, and that would be allowed. Although neighbors would have quite a bit of say on that. There was a conditional use process that would have a lot of public involvement. And in speaking with Transitions further, that really wasn't their goal. They weren't just trying to group a bunch of people together and try and manage an apartment building. So then we came to a fairly new ordinance in Spokane geared towards the infill housing called cottage housing. This ordinance requires that you have more than half an acre of land, and with 2 acres, we're able to maximize it to be 24 cottage houses. It's a minimum of 6 per acre, a maximum of 12 per acre. So the project is kind of, technically it's split into 2 12 unit projects, but as a whole, as we proceed, I think it'll be one holistic project. So when you look at the drawings over there, you'll see some duplicity in some duplication in some of the open spaces and some of the parking requirements and that sort of thing. And that's simply because technically it's 2 projects and they have to meet certain regulations, requirements of this ordinance. It's a pretty precise ordinance. They have a lot of different things that they are requiring, which is a good thing. And there's a few that have been done in town, although I don't personally believe that they've been done terribly well. There's a requirement for open space, certain dimensions that go along with that. Around the open space, you're supposed to have your units that access them. Your units are limited to 1,000 square feet overall, and half of them cannot be more than 650 square feet on the first floor. You're required.
Isn't it impressive?
Look at these stats, yes.
You're required to have open space for each unit. Each cottage gets its own yard, and there's minimum dimensions for that. There's separations in between the units that you cannot get closer than 10 feet between buildings. So, I mean, there's a whole series of things. You have to have a porch of 60 square feet, minimum dimension of 6 feet, and it should be oriented to either the street or to the open space. So there's a lot of ins and outs on making this all fit, and for the most part, I think it does real well, and it meets the overall intent is to have infill housing, but to have it be a sustainably based infill housing, to really have a rich community, that could be brought together in these open spaces, and you're not just clustering a bunch of houses tightly together. You're trying to create something that works within an existing neighborhood. You have requirements for variety in your design, so it's not just a bunch of cookie cutter boxes in this vibrant neighborhood. You're required to integrate to some degree and to really create a sense of community, and I think that just meshes really well with what Transitions is after.
How does the community center fit in?
That hasn't been done yet in Spokane as part of the cottage housing.
Right.
So we went to the city and all right, what kind of
Right,
requirements are you going to
right.
have? What kind of requirements are you going to have? I mean, it would be standard for any apartment complex to have a community building,
Mm-hmm.
and so it wasn't unreasonable to ask that,
Mhm.
and I think the goal of being able to have a sheltered space where people can come together, especially with a population like this, is going to be really, really useful. So we developed a space that had kind of some multi-purpose area, and with limited footprints, it was helpful to have a separate laundry. Not have a laundry in each unit, and the maintenance is beneficial as well. But then the office structure, for the management of this site was a bit of a challenge to get through the city. And finally we came down to, you know, they really wanted us to have one office, and we finally said, okay, we're gonna have one very large office. that Hold several people so the management can really, you know, function.
Yeah.
And I think that's all gone pretty well. The city is really for this project and would like to see it, and I think everybody would like to see it take a few more steps than what is existing in town, and really work towards a more sustainable environment. You know, we're looking at options for solar panels, for different energy efficiency methods, different, you know, sustainable methods as far as the landscape goes. You know, there's a lot of green shown there, but that's just to show landscape and open area more than it is grass necessarily. Certainly, I think we're going to have our play areas that will be a turf, but I think we can break them up enough with some more drought-tolerant plants, and so you're not dumping a lot of water into this landscape.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
First, I've heard wonderful things about you. We've heard, we actually, my husband's the money now, and when we've heard the 150 per square foot, we're like, whoa, because we have a LLC back east, we've done development, small scale development. So we were like, whoa. So it was actually the architect, you know, that he looked at your plans, and we had very wonderful things to say about you. And much to my chagrin, the numbers are true numbers.
Yeah.
Just because of federal involvement, prevailing wage,
Yeah.
you know, everything that, you know, it's just too bad.
Yeah.
It's just understandable. But anyway, with that said, I have a question as far as, you had mentioned the surrounding community would have input in a large building. Has there been an outreach to the surrounding homes? Are they aware of the project? Are you at that point yet?
We're really not, we are this summer though. She's put together a communication plan,
Okay.
really this summer. Our first group really is the garden people. We have a community garden on the property that will need to be moved.
Okay.
And so we have some plans to speak with them, but that partly why we just got these drawings this week.
Okay. That's really important.
It is. And we kind of came to a conclusion that we didn't want a lot of involvement in the design because of the cottage
Correct.
housing ordinance. It sort of held us to certain expectations. But we do want them to be aware of what we're doing and to give input about.
To be part of the process.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my second question. If there is some resistance in the community, because they're very welcome, because everybody is open to certain things, and this is their input. One of the things that community will do in programs that I've been involved with, at least back east, is they kind of latch onto property and traffic. That seems to be the one spot they go after. So my question is are these units the size that they are? Are they 1 or 2 unit? 1 or 2 car units? One car unit. So they will be limited to 1 car.
Yeah, it would be no different than if this were a standard thing.
So we just have a point for extra cars and neighbors. They don't have anything there. So that's just my question. And then.
And I'll also mention to that, Patrice, we don't allow people to have cars on our current housing
Correct.
property unless they are licensed and have insurance.
Correct.
So that's one way that we kind of make sure that there's not just abandoned vehicles on the
Well, yeah,
property or control that. And then it's also very uncommon for these families to be able to afford vehicles.
Correct.
So what we're actually planning on is that bicycles and things would be the bigger issue for our
Right.
property. So we're trying to find creative ways for people to be able to store bicycles and things at their home. So we've heard that question or that issue before, and that's kind of some of the controls that we currently have in place, and also some of the
Right.
plans we have.
Yeah, because that's the easy, for any type of negative input or any type of hold, that is the first place that people go to.
Right.
Because it's the easiest place for them to go to.
Right.
But with it being more permanent housing, I would think that they would likely be able to afford a car because they would be more sustained, self-sustained in the home, so that's the goal. So I guess that's just really what I wanted to ask. And then, as far as I'm so sorry, I have a lot of questions. And then, as far as the going green, as part of a project at East, I know there's a lot of federal money. But is that something that your organization will do grant writing for, or would we be the
Yeah, you should do
Yeah,
that.